Shot of the bridge, East River, sun rising here in New York City. Alan Hahn, Bart Scott are joined by Mike Tannenbaum as well for this hour. Chris Kenny going to join us a little bit later on. Jay Will, we wish him the best. He and his wife, of course, Nikki, expecting their first child. So Jay Will off for a little bit. Keyshawn's going to be back with us next week, so we look forward to that certainly as well. But we'll hold it down here, guys, for the rest of this week. And obviously for today, the draft is 3 weeks away. It feels like the closer I feel like it's coming, the further away it feels, but it's getting there. And the conversation with the draft continues as now we know, we've always known number one, Trevor Lawrence. Now we know after the Jets moving Sam Darnold to Carolina, that number two, they're taking a quarterback, and most likely it'll be Zach Wilson. Number three, the 49ers moved up, and then, of course, they're looking to take a quarterback. And now, guys, Adam Schefter is reporting that the number
Falcons.
4, Atlanta Falcons, thank you, are receiving calls and taking offers for the number 4 overall pick. So while all along, guys, it has been the thought that this is going to be at 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks, Chris Mortensen on SportsCenter yesterday said it might not be a quarterback. Take a listen.
I would say that the object of teams' desire are really most likely, and based off what I've heard, is Florida tight end Kyle Pitts. This is a guy who a lot of people have rated 1 or 2 or 3 on their overall draft board, although I will note draft boards are not final and set yet. But Kyle Pitts is a very attractive, unique player. It's ironic that it's the Falcons because it's a strong belief that the 2 of the players they're considering there are, in fact, Trey Lance, the North Dakota State quarterback, and Kyle Pitts, the Florida tight end.
All right, this is Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. So, Mike, let me go to you first on this one because this has been such a heavy conversation about quarterbacks, but everybody has really been excited about Kyle Pitts as the non-quarterback, maybe the best non-quarterback player available in this draft. If you were a GM and you had a chance to move up, what would be your target at number 4?
Well, really, the context is everything, guys. But if I was Atlanta, I'd sit there and I would take Trey Lance. And the reason for that is I think when it's all said and done over the next 10 years, I think Trey Lance has a chance to be really special because he has ideal measurables. He has ideal intangibles. He's been incredibly productive. He's thrown 1 interception in college. He's run for 166 yards in a championship game. And in my mind, he checks every box. So if I'm the Falcons, I don't trade out. I take Trey Lance and build my future around him. With that said, if we're evaluating the non-quarterbacks, Kyle Pitts is certainly in that conversation for the best player. He's a tremendous mismatch. And Alan, some linebackers aren't great in space. Some linebackers are better in a phone booth. I'm not sure who, but when you put Kyle Pitts in space, he is a brutal mismatch for most linebackers. So he really is a very unique player, and I can see why there's a ton of interest in him.
Bart?
Well, for me, if I'm the Falcons, when you think about it, sometimes fat pigs get slaughtered, right? And they can get greedy and try and get cute and try and move back if, you think about if you think that you want Pitts and or if you believe that, because they have to replace Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is coming closer to the end of his career, and they have to make a decision. He has a huge cap number this year. And they have to get a replacement. So it has to be Trey Lance. But if somebody's saying, hey, I'm moving up for Pitts and I'm going to insure you now, you got to have a tremendous amount of trust in the person that you're dealing with to say, hey, okay, if I move back, say if it's Cincinnati that wants to move up or somebody wants to move up a couple of spots and you're like, hey, I still can get my guy. Mm-hmm. But for me, the best non-quarterback in this draft is Sewell. Because you can plug and play him for 15 years. It's the safest pick. And sometimes somebody wants to hit a home run. There's nothing wrong with hitting a double and being able to build around that. So when you think about picks, I think it's all about location. But if I'm Arthur Smith and I want to attach myself at the hip with somebody that's going to extend my future, it's going to be a guy like Trey Lance who can sit behind Matt Ryan, be able to learn how to be a professional, learn how to prepare, and then be able to take over the job maybe late in the season if they're having a bad season, or watch him go through his preparation and go against better competition, especially within that division when you have terrific time. You get to be on the other sideline, watch terrific time prepare, and watch these two go at it head to head. So I don't get cute if I'm Atlanta. You're picking 4 for a reason. Make sure you don't pick 4th again for a very, very long time.
Mike, I'm curious about this one because, as we know, the percentages tell you that the more quarterbacks that go in the top 10, there's that boom or bust factor, right? The percentages tell you if 4 go in the top 10, would you say 2 of them probably have a chance, or most likely because of, again, what history tells us could be the bust factor? And the longer, like the deeper you go, so if you're taking the 4th quarterback, the 4th one available, that means that 3 other teams don't see him as somebody that is the quarterback of the future. And if you have Matt Ryan at 35 years old, maybe you want to just give it one more kick at the can and use the assets you can, either to trade out and get some more picks and try to build and get yourself some pieces, or you go for something like a tight end or who else knows what else they would do there, or maybe even Sewell, to try to just give it one more shot. I just worry about the percentages when it comes to quarterbacks in the top 10 because we've seen, history has told us, you're not going to go 4 for 4. You're not going to get 4 franchise quarterbacks out of this.
Yeah, Alan, no, a couple of thoughts come to mind. The quarterback position is a developmental position, and Trey Lance is going to take some time. I agree with Bart. You could win for today with Matt Ryan and develop for tomorrow with Trey Lance. How about this? The last 5 quarterbacks that were traded up into the top 3 were Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, and RG3. 5 for 5, those quarterbacks are in the top 3. And if the 3 of us owned a team and we said we could look at the history of our sport and we could either take quarterbacks taken in the top 3 or everything else, if we're talking about the top 3, we talk about Troy Aikman, we talk about Peyton Manning. And if we talked about everybody else, we talk about players like Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. There is a much more compelling argument about not drafting a quarterback in the top 3 when you look at the history of our sport. It's unbelievable when you look at it over time. For every Andrew Luck and Vinny Testaverde and Peyton Manning, there's 10 examples of non-top 3 quarterbacks that have gone on to have incredible careers.
And of those, the 5 that you named, name them again for me, the 5 that you just named.
So in the last 5 quarterbacks to be traded up for in the top 3, Sam Darnold, no longer with the Jets. Mitch Trubisky, no longer with the Bears. Jared Goff, no longer with the Rams. Carson Wentz, no longer with the Eagles. And RG3, no longer with Washington.
Yeah, that was the point. Is what do they all have in common? They didn't stay with their team, meaning they didn't turn into franchise quarterbacks.
Well, for me, the draft starts at 3, right? Because we assume that we know who the Jets are going to take in Zach Wilson, and I don't know if that's where I would go with it, but that's where they're deciding to hitch their wagon to. It starts at 3 because if you think about all the draft equity and future draft picks that San Francisco gave up, and if they did all of that to move up to get Mac Jones because he's able to overthrow his receivers in his pro day.
Strong arm.
And he's able to play for Nick Saban with 3 first-round draft picks, on the offensive side of the ball, when you think about Waddle and a running back, and you think of a great offensive line, we don't know what he can do with bad personnel. And then I said that he's going to go to bad personnel with San Francisco, but eventually that team is going to get taken apart, and he's going to be the guy that you hope to be the answer for 15 years. Don't know if he can be that.
Mike, just a final thought on that one, because that's what Bart's been saying all along, and I know that when you did your mock, you had Mac Jones pretty high.
Yeah, no, I think Bart's points are completely fair. That Mac Jones has been a great player, but he's had great players around him. I think their calculus is Kyle Shanahan. I took Matt Ryan to the Super Bowl. We should have beaten New England, and Mac Jones is a better version of Matt Ryan. He's a better version of Matt Schaub. These are quarterbacks I've won with. He's smart. Now, I do think Mac Jones is a better athlete than others. I've seen him play in person. He has good athleticism, not elite by any stretch. But the other thing about him that to me is remarkable is you can measure accuracy a lot of different ways with quarterbacks. He's created over 2,400 yards after catch yards. Now, look, I know they got great receivers, but you have to be an accurate quarterback to be able to produce that sort of production after the catch.
Well, it's going to be something interesting to watch in this draft, as it always is. All right, that was Straight Talk, brought by Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. So you mentioned Sam Darnold. You mentioned all those players that were traded up for in the draft and how that's turned out.